Pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum.
The 2018 A Star is Born is one of the 4 remakes to tell the glamorous romance about fame and the tragic side of it. The new version has received overly praises and is considered for an Oscar candidate. But with this long record of remake, what is so unique about these movies? Is there something to go back to? Well, here is where I find out why does Hollywood keep remaking these movies and share my favorite version and my favorite male and female lead interpretation. You can say this is my first time ever Fatal 4-Way comparison, as I begin by asking all of the Star is Born movies, what did they have in common? I'll tell you what they have in common! The first Star is Born was made in 1937, even though by that time the story wasn't unique. The movie borrowed plenty from George Cukor's What Price Hollywood from 1932. Many consider this to be the original Star is Born. It has the young girl aspiring to be a star, she gets help from a drunken director to succeed. Though they don't have a romantic relationship, the director commits suicide and the girl's lover gets jealous of her career success. These story arcs would be later changed and imprinted with all the remakes, but they will remain faithful to the spirit of the story. The female character's name was Esther, the male character's name was Norman, the talented Esther becomes a star, her romance flourishes with Norman, an alcoholic established star who helps her succeed. Norman becomes jealous of his wife, leading up to his tragic suicide. Cukor attempted to sue the studio for plagiarizing his movie, but didn't go anywhere, and was instead offered to direct the first Star is Born, but refused. Instead, the 1937 version was directed by William A. Wellman, who directed the first Academy Award-winning picture from 1927, Wings. After George Cukor refused to work on the first Star is Born, he finally was convinced to direct the second remake in 1954, co-starring Judy Garland as Esther, who she and the director were new working together. George was one of the many directors to film Wizard of Oz, the movie that made Judy Garland internationally famous. Norman would this time be played by James Mason, known for other roles in Stanley Kubrick's Lolita and Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest. The second remake was similar to the original from dialogue and plot arcs. It has the aspiring star, the drunken star, it has love and tragedy as the original. But as the first was purely about the movie industry, the second remake was a mix of Hollywood and musicals. After all, this was the 50s, when musicals were reigning supreme in Hollywood, and it would demonstrate how show business would evolve through generations, as in the third remake. In 1976, A Star is Born would shine once again. Only this time, instead of taking place in the movie industry, it was the music industry. Norman was no longer the actor, but a rock star played by Kris Kristofferson, which some might still recognize him from Blade as Wesley. Esther was now an aspiring singer who will be played by already established singer and actress Barbra Streisand. And finally, this leads up to the fourth and new adaptation of A Star is Born, where it continues the musical backstory from the last one. This time Esther is known as Allie, and Norman is known as Jack. The last 3 movies have been nominated in the Oscars, with only the 1976 version winning Best Original Song, and the 1937 winning Best Original Story. Best Original? Huh, didn't you hear anything that I said? However, they have never won the big gold for Best Picture. The new remake has built enough buzz and rumors for a possible Oscar nomination, and if it did get nominated, it wouldn't be surprising. They will keep making these movies until they get the big gold, even if it takes place in the moon in 2050. But that's the question. Why do they keep up making these movies? Because it updates how society has evolved through show business, demonstrating what problems have still remained to this day, what new problems have been added, and what has been fixed through the perspective of each generation. From the conservative golden age of motion pictures of the 30s, the musical era of the 50s, the liberal rock and roll of the 70s, to the modern social media that can get anyone famous in one night. And also the freedom to express and share our mind and our body to the whole world. It's a sneak peek to see what's behind Hollywood's glamour. And if anybody loves to make movies about making movies, it's Hollywood. The Artist, Birdman, Sunset Boulevard, Singing in the Rain, La La Land. It is also a cautionary tale for what to expect if succeeding in the industry. The dangers of addiction, the lack of privacy as a public figure, the star becoming dehumanized by the people, Hollywood's control over the person's image and selling it as a product. So it is a story that loves to tell how awesome they are, but they don't sugarcoat that there are backstabbing, lies, heartbreaks, and tragedies in their industry. It also speaks of the male ego, when women surpass men in their achievements. Some might think that diversity has won in Hollywood, but looking from the 30s to the 2000s, it's very clear that's not the case. Norman starts off as an already wreck, but with a bit of charm that makes you like him. After all, they all repeat that same creepy line they think sounds romantic, but it's not.
Hey! You mind if I take just one more look?
I just want to take another look at you.
I was just taking another look.
I just want to take another look at you.
This disgusting! How the hell did they get away with that? But as his addiction progresses, Norman becomes more pathetic, more humiliating, and more jealous of her wife surpassing him, as they all have their embarrassing exposure during the ceremony award. In the original, Norman was played by Frederick March, known for his famous role in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's a man of his time, but he's still likable and very helpful, though he's probably the most goofy of the four and the most pathetic. In the second remake, he's a lot more elegant and suave, though a bit awkward with the romance, but I never felt the weight of his downfall. Just to compare, in the original when we first see Norman drunk, he tries to keep it under control, but it's obvious he can't, and it makes you feel his embarrassment. In this version, he has a lot of fun making a fool of himself, that he never leaves an impression of saying, "Poor guy." All he left me saying was, I know what he's gonna say, I know what he's gonna do, because in the last half, he becomes a copy of the original, repeating the same lines and scenes that he stops becoming authentic. The Norman of the third remake is the wildest of the four Normans. He's chaotic, very free-spirited, and is the worst of the four. He's not likable or romantic, he's not even that charming. I understand that we're trying to interpret a celebrity consumed by the new drug addiction from the 70s, but he's overly chaotic to root for him. He even gets caught cheating on Esther. Now that's a new blow. Get it? For the younger audience, Bradley Cooper might be the only interpretation of Norman or Jack they ever know, and be their most favorite. And I can see why. He's got the most swagger, most charm, he can make something that would look creepy seem romantic. And he did so much in this role. He had to act, sing, direct in his first debut as a director. If he gets nominated for male lead, which will probably happen, it is well deservingly so. But to be honest, I am close enough on wanting to pick the original as my favorite Norman, because he's the one I felt for the most. Whenever he gets humiliated, he's made a spectacle, always reminded of what a has-been he's become, that you feel bad for his tragedy and those he affected. When as for the other Normans, I never felt bad for any of them, not even for Cooper. But because he had so much to prove, which paid off, adds new layers to his character, from the origins of his addiction, his complicated relationship with his older brother, I'm giving the fourth remake the best male lead. Now for the role of Esther, it's interesting that in the first two movies, it's played from her point of view, while in the last two films she feels like a supporting role to Norman. In the original, she was kind, gentle, and determined to purchase her dreams. In the second remake, Judy is as equally kind, but is more real to her feelings about Norman's addictions. Now what makes the first two unique is how similar their characters are to the real-life counterpart. Before filming the movies, both actresses were struggling in their career. Janet Gaynor was breaking from her silent films, Judy Garland was dealing with her addictions, so it made it easy to root for them in their breakthrough comeback. The last two, however, were established stars with no fear of career struggles, but that doesn't mean it hurt their performance. Both Streishand and Lady Gaga have a strong presence when it comes to music, just like when they sing their last emotional song in the end. Streishand took me a while to appreciate her fragility and how she could stand for herself. But the last third is where she becomes absurd in a level of soap opera. She finds Norman cheating on her, she gets mad for a while, and then suddenly forgives him. Well, there goes your self-respect. Lady Gaga is different because she plays to her physical insecurities and is the only one of the four who tries to break into the industry without the help of any man. And while this is not her first time acting, she always kept that same eyebrow-raising expression. Maybe she was trying to mimic Jack Nicholson. Now, it might seem that the original Esther is inferior to the others. After all, how can she compete when everyone else sings and she doesn't? Not to take away from the others, especially Judy, who has the longest piece where she sings about her rise to success. By the way, here's a Harvey Weinstein reference.
Yes. No.
But I felt the most endeared by the original Esther. She had the most character development, we witnessed her humble beginnings, the interaction with her grandmother were emotional when called for, and we see an Esther that is naive and full of illusions when later faces the harsh reality. So if I picked the best version of Esther, I would go with the 1937 version. What none of these films failed to do is be authentic. Since they're all from different eras, they all seem unique in their own social way. The original is still an emotional, heartbreaking story. You feel for their tragedy and you feel for their accomplishments. But as the more the remakes progress, this one will look smaller in comparison of size. The second remake is the most epic, most cinematic of all of them. The sets are big, the songs are big, and it has the longest runtime of 3 hours. You know what? I might even give this the best set design of all the four. My only issue is not only is it too long, but it looks too nice. They're too well polished and well glamoured to relate to them when tragedy falls. Even when Esther is a nobody, she still looks glamorous. Even when Norman hits rock bottom, he still looks nice. The third remake is the only one of the four to receive mixed reviews. The romance was rushed, unorganic, and had no chemistry. You don't buy them as a couple because they're polar opposite of each other. Norman is too wild and unstable, Esther is quiet, settled, and too nice to fall for someone that's out of control. Even though it can look great once in a while. But in the new version, I see the chemistry between Allie and Jack. They're both equally artistic, but they're wild and crazy enough to fit as a couple. Plus, as I mentioned, it has more to offer to Norman's character, where the deep emotions lie between him and his brother. So as a recap, the original is charming, but a little small from vision. The second is a bit long and too nice looking to feel for the characters. The third remake, the characters have no chemistry. And the fourth is often said that Bradley Cooper is a much stronger actor than singer, and Lady Gaga is a much stronger singer than actor. But which of these four I find to be the best? Well, I didn't find myself more compelling, more emotionally invested than the original 1937 version. Sure, it doesn't have big sets or grand musicals, but it's the one I felt for the most. The rest felt either as repetition or I didn't care enough about their tragedy. I found this Esther to be the most compelling, and I found this Norman to be the most tragic. Then again, they all have something new to add and something new to offer. If you like the 2018 version better, it's understandable, but notice this: time is key. All of these movies are a product of their time. As much as these are classics, they're not as memorable. That is why some may have never heard of these movies before. To be honest, I never heard of them before, and I call myself a classic buff. Shame on me! Their themes still hold up, but where it's said, it doesn't as much. Maybe the 2018 version might be good for right now, but there will come a time where it doesn't hold up as good anymore, and a new one will come along and take its place. So as a recap, here are my favorite winning awards. My favorite Norman, my favorite Esther, my favorite cinematography or set design, and my favorite version of A Star Is Born. Which version is your favorite? Leave it on the comment section and let me know which one you want to take another look.
I just want to take another look at you.
And just to emphasize how the supposed romantic line is not so romantic, Here's a few examples of how creepy it would look like if you went up to another stranger and said those things. Hey, Scarlett!
Yes?
I just wanna take a look at you. Aha! Or how about this one, but when a stranger calls? Hey, Jimmy!
Yes?
I just wanna take a look at you.
What?
Nothing? Or just to take it to another level? How about this one? Hey, you there! I just wanna take another look at you. Just kidding. Well guys, tune in next time because when I get back, I'll be talking more about Hollywood in Orson Welles. Yes, this already dead Orson Welles in his new movie, The Other Side of the Wind. So for now, that's it for today. Ciao.
Pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum.